Welcome to my mansion, traveler. That's right, we're in the spookiest castle in all the land to discuss the spookiest of new television shows. Legion, the ghost show, all about spookiness and ghosts. Welcome to the mansion. My name is Baron One JAKOB Buttofs. Who might you be?
I am Jim Scampoli, and I have one question for you.
Yes?
Shall we begin?
We shall.
Shall we begin?
I'm flicking my light on and off. I don't know if you can hear that.
I hear it.
It's like lightning.
It's distracting.
Yep. We're actually here to talk about Legion, everybody. It's episode 3. I was just doing a little, well, I wouldn't call it a joke. I would call it an impression of this show, which has
call it was like a post-humor joke.
Yeah, which is a great excuse. Everyone put that on your Twitters. Put hashtag post-humor. This is a post-humor podcast, so it's all good. You can do whatever you want, basically. We're talking about episode 3.
No, it was a joke. If we go inside the joke real quick, Legion is a spooky show. You were being a spooky guy. Enough said.
I suppose that does make it a joke. I would call it criticism because is commonly known, I'm not a fan of spooky shows. Not necessarily all spooky shows, but just the actual, that element of it is never the one that grips me the most. It can grip me, but it doesn't grip me the most. And at this point, we're leaning into psychological horror, which is like 2 of my least favorite things all in one. That's not to say I didn't like this episode and that I hate Legion now and we should, all go on Jacob's Twitter and call him an idiot. I'm not saying that. Hashtag post-humor. Don't do that hashtag. Where are you at, Jim?
Well, first of all, how could you not like horror, dude? Come on. I'm gonna make a horror fan out of you. You need to step your game up. Stop being such an elitist.
Right.
Like you think you know what horror is. You don't even know what horror is. But anyways, that's a whole different discussion.
It is.
Second of all, psychological horror is also great. But that's a whole nother discussion. Third of all, I will say that this show is starting to test my patience a bit. I know the path, like for the episode 1, episode 2, we were discussing it a lot, and very positive, I would say.
Yeah.
But I'm still positive, but I'm definitely starting to lean more towards the naysayer negative side a little bit, just because I feel like we're covering the same ground a lot in this show.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're just going in these circles. And the show's like revealing these things that we've known since episode 1, and that's starting to kind of annoy me a little bit.
Yeah.
I still really like the show. I like the people in it. I like the people making it. I like what they're doing with the traditional superhero special powers thing, but plot-wise and episode-wise, it feels like we should be covering a bit more ground at this point. You could still keep it trippy. You could still keep it off kilter, but let's at least see some new things. You don't even have to answer questions.
Yeah.
Like, let's not keep going back to the fucking kitchen where he makes the dishes fly around. We've seen it multiple times, every single episode. And I assume maybe they're building up some big reveal that something we don't know happened there. But let's go, guys. Let's put your fucking foot on the gas.
But Jim, it's so scary. That's what makes it entertaining. Look, I don't even hate all horror stuff, and please everyone take it easy. I connect those negative things you said to them being, first off, I'm gonna say some controversial things here, but don't like dream sequences. Don't like horror as such. I like some stuff about it, but when it's like a long corridor and you're walking slowly through it, even if it's a bit scary and it might even affect me in the way it should a little bit, that's still like a long corridor scene to me. I don't get that much out of it, and that feels like part of the treading water thing. At the same time, I don't want to be too negative on it. And also at the same time, who the fuck are we to say, Jim? We're just two guys. What about the internet? What did they think? The internet people? Well, we got some feedback for you, so we're going to read it, right?
Excellent. Yes.
First off, from Clay, aka Avalanche, who says he wanted to thank us both for the show.
You're welcome.
Yes, no problem. I'm a 30-something white cis male who devotes his free time to his various metal bands or playing video games. Couple that with raising a kid and a new one on the way. My TV time is non-existent. Because of Swick, I can keep up with pop culture TV without slogging through episodes and seasons of something that I might not even be into. Short and sweet of it all. Keep it up. Love the show. Won't stop listening. Not quite on the topic of Legion, but thank you.
Yeah, and you don't really need to qualify what you are when you write in. You don't need to. We don't need to know if you're a cis male, if you're.
I think we need to know what your actual gender, and there's only two, so that's first thing.
And the other thing, I mean, well, number one, took me a second to know what Swick was. That's us.
I like
Shows
that.
I do like that.
Yeah.
The other thing. I love that you're listening to the show. Please don't stop listening to the show. But maybe watch some of these shows too, because I don't know if we're doing a great service if you haven't seen the show. Mm-hmm. I'm sure in the no spoilers, I think we do. I think we do really well. But when we're talking like a season, like sometimes we'll do multiple episodes and not just each episode breakdown. When we're talking a season, if you're listening to the spoiler stuff, you might not be getting the full effects that you should. We definitely recommend watching some of these shows, unless it's Mr. Robot. But anyways.
Well, I agree, but I also feel like I would never be upset with one of my friends for not listening to this show, because I think anyone who goes through the woes of making a show or doing anything creative and putting it online, they kind of have this feeling of like, I have 400 friends on Facebook and 20 people liked my Facebook page about this thing that I care more about than anything in the world. What the heck? But for this thing, I really feel like we're more just hanging out. We're kind of chilling. We're talking about TV because we enjoy it. And people who want to tune in and tune out for various shows, I totally understand that. Like, I think our Westworld coverage is the most popular thing we've done, probably, because a lot of people wanted to discuss that. But I would never like begrudge anyone who wasn't into it. But that said, it's also incredibly nice to hear, Avalanche, that you get something out of it, even though you didn't watch any of the shows. Not quite what we intended, but if it works for you, I'm glad, and I'm glad to be able to continue entertaining you. Sorry about being incredibly confusing sometimes, and also spoiling every good show and every bad show.
Yeah, for sure.
More on topic, we do have some feedback on Legion from Kristen T, who writes, I'm with you guys on the confusion thing. I feel like there's a trend towards shows getting praised because they're told in a confusing way. It's not necessarily mystery, as it is just absurdity. I feel like Sense8 kicked it off, then Westworld, and now Legion. Hoping Legion eases up on it a bit, but I'm not sure they will. Sad face. On the other hand, to completely contradict myself, I do like that I feel like any one of these people could be the villain at any point. I don't trust any of these characters at all, but she does do a hard disagree with you guys on the frog bong. Love the stupid frog bong.
I think that's a great point on shows either with mystery or with, just being confusing. Mm-hmm. And yes, I like it. It is exciting for a lot of these shows at first when you're trying to figure out the big question and what's going on. I kind of more attribute it to it's like the J.J. Abrams effect, because J.J. Abrams is very good at building a mystery or building like intrigue, but they never take the necessary time to pay that off, and that's kind of that's just where we've been with a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of us, like on our show specifically, when we're talking about a new show that's like that, and we're always very hesitant to give it that big seal of approval, it's because of this.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with that. And it's always about seeing where it goes. And it's the most frustrating part, because it does feel like, and I guess that's what with anyone with any of their ideas, you come up with an amazing first act or whatever, And then you're like, ugh, now I gotta like figure this out.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
Fuck that shit.
I think there's a like an increased focus on like just do a great pilot, or in a book even like the first, like people say stuff like the first page is all that matters. Like anyone knows if they're gonna buy the book from the first page, which is fair, in a way, because you don't need to put a ton of energy into something that you don't think you're gonna enjoy. But at the same time, that does lead towards like, it's okay if we do like a great first episode and it can be really confusing, and then the middle is almost always fuzzy. There's always like a big fuzz, and then we're just kind of waiting for the end. Even though I really liked Westworld, there was a bit in the middle where I was like, okay, another episode of this, I suppose. We'll see where this goes. We just have to wait. And like, it's not an even progression because of all those confusing things being thrown in. But I don't want to be too harsh on it either, because sometimes it works really well, and I don't want to discourage people from doing new and interesting things.
For sure, yeah. That's why like a first page on most books is like, she cried as she was dragged into the woods and something or other, and you're like, oh my god, what is this gonna be? Mm-hmm. And then it's just some fucking, she went to the prom, and then they got married at the end.
I don't know what books you're reading, Jim, but it's not. What is that? What is it, the young adult book? I can't tell. Yeah. So yes, as I said, we're just two idiots. Please send in your opinions. I'm sure you will say, I'm an idiot for my horror stuff. Jim's an idiot because, I don't know, his hat. You don't like his hat, maybe? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
I'm sure they'll say, you guys are spot on. You guys are smart, I'm sure they'll say.
That doesn't happen a lot online, Jim. Especially with things people care about a lot, like TV, which they should. But anyway, you can send your opinions to showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com, or just comment on our videos or website, showswhatyouknow.com. Now let's get into episode 2. Not a lot happens.
Episode 3.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was a Freudian slip, because what is different at the end of episode 3 compared to the end of episode 2, I'd like to know.
Very true. Very true. And that's because the second episode I give you a pass, because we kind of talked about this last week, where the second episode, the job is to kind of reinforce the pilot, but also settle you in for this. Okay, this is a series.
Yeah.
Whereas a pilot is very much, especially in this type of genre, a pilot is pretty much a movie that ends in a cliffhanger.
Yes.
To keep you to watch the second one. And the second one is reinforcing a lot of the same themes and plot points, but letting you know, like, all right, it's going to be a series, so don't expect the pilot every week. And then, but for some reason, this episode 3 is kind of like, hey, remember episode 2? Yeah, that's kind of going on still.
Yeah.
And it really it reminds me what I was saying last week. I mean, well, I guess, should we give spoiler, where are we at? Where are we at as far as spoiler warnings here?
I'm pretty sure that if you don't want spoilers, you're in the wrong place. Like, we're going to discuss, we're doing spoilers, I think, right?
Yeah, here we go. Initial thoughts, I think we're kind of on a similar page, is that we're still in with this show, but it feels like we're covering very familiar ground.
Oh, yeah. And I feel like these episode by episode stuff, there's gonna be very little to no spoiler free section, because it's for the people who are following along mostly, and Clay Wald. Yes, what were you gonna say before the warning?
So spoiler warnings in case you didn't know. What I was talking about last week, of how, like, it ends with him going to save his sister, but then they have kind of a, you buy it, but you don't buy it excuse on why he doesn't. Mm-hmm. And then my thing was like, she could be being tortured. She could be being, and I didn't say raped, I said R word, because I was like, I don't want to bring up rape for, trigger warning.
Right.
But then episode 3 brings up rape a bunch. So I feel like I'm free to talk. Like, this episode was the things I was saying in episode form. Mm-hmm. Because it begins basically with, like, the whole shall we beginning, and it's kind of like a torture montage. The show loves montages, by the way, so we get yet another one. And at least it is hinting at, like, David's having these visions, like, he's picking up what's happening. Mm-hmm. And he's getting in these flashes, and it is, torture. And then there's a point later on when our Lenny shows up, and then she's making all these kind of rape references. Your sister's being raped. She's being tortured with their big hard, and it's like, don't even say it. So, putting those thoughts in your head, this type of show is.
Yeah, so what do you feel? Does it feel justified that he's doing nothing? I feel like in a way it is. Like, I get what they're, like, the motivation makes sense, but, and he does say a lot of times in this episode, all he cares about is his sister. Like, stop with this bullshit. I want to get to that. I believe it. It's more like, the overarching decisions of the people who are making it that make it feel a bit kind of frustrating, because the second episode didn't really give us a good conclusion, and this episode didn't give us a conclusion. It's kind of a cliffhanger, but not an exciting one in a way.
Yeah, and plus they're doing the same thing, kind of.
Yes.
He's with the one doctor who's like the quirky, I have weird technology that's all mixed errors of technology to study your brain, and he's making jokes like, don't break all my stuff. And then he's with the memory enhancer or what have you, traveling through his brain, and then he's still trying to figure out if he should go help his sister or not. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's not completely terrible that the idea is that they're still exploring his potential and his powers and how they came about and what they mean and how they've affected his life. But it feels so much like they're doing the same stuff that they had just done. Like, we pick back up in the kitchen. We pick back up in when he's doing drugs with Lenny, and we realize that those scenes happened right around each other. Like, he was doing drugs right before he blew up the kitchen or whatever. We see him as a kid. We see the book with the angriest boy. And, yes. We get some nice moments, like seeing the live action version of Angriest Boy is pretty creepy. So I did like that, but it feels like, here we are again, and here's the yellow-eyed demon again. And it's all stuff they've hit on in the first episode and the second episode multiple times, and they're just doing it again.
Yeah. I feel like this would all work pretty well if they had more of an episode-to-episode structure, if 2 and 3 together formed like a complete circle, a complete story that got us to like a definite place, got us towards a solution. But I don't really see that happening as far as these episodes. But at the same time, I'm sure people will listen to us and say, "Oh, you impatient bastards! Like, just let the show be the show. True. Why you gotta rush things? Why you gotta do this and that?" I suppose part of it is that we know it's 6 episodes, 7 episodes.
It's 8 episodes, I believe. And yeah, I was gonna bring up the same thing. We're almost halfway through this season.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff here is what I was saying in episode 1, that I hope the show isn't that much about these things, that much about being in a head. I don't like the dream sequences. I don't like stuff that's not real, even if it's hinted that it might be real. That's a personal preference, I'll say, like, straight up. It's not for, like, a lot of people love that. A lot of people love the mind fuck stuff, and for me, I just check out because I'm always preparing for another wake up. Like, I've seen too many Black Mirrors and Inceptions. Like, I know it's not, I don't believe any of it anyway. I don't trust that it's real, so I don't invest myself in it. It's just, oh yeah, it's a creepy corridor and it's like a cool camera trick and more Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind thing, almost, with the memories blending together and this and that, but with the horror on top. And some of it's effective, but it doesn't go very far. I feel like it could have gone further in these episodes. But I suppose we should go through it from beginning to end, or what do you think?
Well, yeah. And just one thing to add to what you were saying before we do that. I love a good dream sequence or, memory thing. Only if it serves, usually you're doing this to serve a character, to serve like character moments. One of my favorite episodes of Buffy is Restless. It's the season 4 finale, and it's all dream sequences, but they're very rich with details in moments that greater develop what the character is going through and what things mean to that character and their relationship with the other characters. Now, if we were getting more of that in some of these segments, I would like this show a lot more. And I don't know, maybe people are, but to me, it's always David is afraid. And David is afraid. He's a young kid, he's afraid. He's a drug addict, adolescent, he's afraid. And then when he's in present day, he's afraid. And I get that's a big part of the character anyways, because he doesn't know his power and he has another, like a malevolent force that's somehow controlling him. Yeah. But if we at least saw a little bit more, if we just got a little bit more moments, whether it be moments with his mom, which I guess they don't want to show because they're waiting for this big reveal that we kind of sees coming. Or even like, I mean, I guess I kind of like, I did like the moment, I know we'll get to it a little later in the episode, but when he hugs that girl because they can't touch, like that was nice. I just wish there was if we're going to do this stuff, I don't mind the tension, I don't mind the trippiness, I don't mind, it trying to make you guess what's happening. But if we got a better sense of who David is and his experiences, it would be better to me.
I think you pretty much nailed it. Where it's doesn't feel with that much substance and that much development. Now, I'll say the parts that I like the most are the relationship with Sid and David. I think is really good. Mm-hmm. Even if the beginning felt a bit contrived, like a kind of indie movie where like we'd be my girlfriend and all that. At this point, I feel like there's a realism to it, and the non-touching adds to, like, it makes it more interesting rather than a show where two characters get together and they fuck. It's second episode, and and then they break up, and it's it's a bit more than that, and it feels genuine, and they have pretty good chemistry in their scenes together. Some stuff funny when they're flirting about when they switched bodies, and he's talking about how he touched her boobs, and she says, it's okay.
And he got to pee. He got to pee as a girl, and he got to experience urinating as a woman. That's not a lot of guys get to say that. Actually, no guy gets to say that, because once they do that, they're not a guy anymore. They're a woman. But anyways, yes, and then they had a cool jerk-off joke.
That was a great one. There's a lot of that's in every body switching anime, all of that stuff. But still works. There's a reason for that.
Before that, we had the coffee makers that think. Speaking of Restless, Buffy, by the way, Buffy the episode Restless, there is a line where Riley says, "We're drawing up a plan for world domination. The key element, coffee makers that think." And what does this episode have? A talking coffee maker.
Do they take place in the same universe? It wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility. That monster thing looks a bit like, the what's it called? Mephistus, the one that followed Faith to Sunnydale?
Yes.
Big fat bastard.
Good pull.
Yeah. Or the big fat bastard from Austin Powers.
Yeah.
Be that guy.
That too.
So many possibilities. We haven't heard him speak. He could be Scottish.
And then, we find out that the coffee maker or the electronics are inhabited by the husband of the lady.
Yeah, I mean, first I was like, oh, there's some cool Doc Brown shit. And then I was like, why does it tell you the same depressing story every time you want a mocha? It gives you that extra bitter taste, I suppose. But, it's the old, all I have left is an answering machine of my lover who died.
Yeah.
That old gag. Which would be, these days, that would be like a Snapchat and would be gone forever.
Snapchat, let me save this.
No, they'll know. They'll know you saved it, and then that's why they died? I don't know. So, we see the kitchen freak out for the 100th time when they finally begin. The big fat bastard shows up, and then they snap back to reality, but they teleported to a different place, and the leader of the, what is it called? Orange County? The place? Something about oranges. Is that it? Clockworks was the first one. This is like something. We're bad at this. Doing a show.
I know it's Dr. Bird. I looked it up real quick. The lady doctor is Dr. Bird.
Dr. Bird is surprised that he can teleport things, which he has already did in the previous episode when he was in the brain scanner. He teleported.
Yes.
No one brought it up, but he did. And telekinesis, moving stuff, seems pretty basic compared to actually, ripping loose a whole machine and putting it somewhere else. But point is, he has a lot of powers, and everyone's surprised by it, except the viewers who've seen that kitchen scene 100 times. So we already knew that. Yeah. And honestly, then it's like, yeah, he's flirting with his girlfriend about when they switched bodies. She says like she's been a lot of different people. Does that mean that this is not her OG body? Did she steal this body?
I don't know, because from what we've seen, it's like a temporary thing, so she turns back to herself.
That's
I
right.
mean, I guess there with a power like this, there's always the potential that there could be some sort of reveal like that. But at least as far as we know, it happens for a few hours, and then she becomes herself again. And she kind of says that she's like, I've been this person, this person, this person, but I'm always me. So
right.
I don't know, but you're right. That could always, with that type of power, they can always flip it on you.
Yeah, but I'm always like, it's like the Inception thing. I'm always waiting for an extra reveal, so it's hard for me to invest too much because I feel like, oh, she's probably, David, or Dr. Bird is David. They're all David, something like that.
Well,
possibly.
Lenny even shows up in that moment to make him doubt Sid. That girl's secrets got secrets.
Right.
But then again, we know that David can't always trust his mind, because we know that there's a blob man with yellow eyes that's constantly making things like shake and go crazy. Mm-hmm. So you never know what's what here. But, they're planting the seed of the doubt in case they do want to set up a nice little twisteroo on that. And as I said, she kept talking about like how his sister's being raped.
Yep. And there's parts of this episode it's kind of fuzzy to me in a little bit, because then they go out of his mind, and then it's like, we have to go in, but this time we sedate you. Does anything else happen before that that's important?
No, I mean, on my notes, that's kind of what I have. Yeah, they think, because they keep going into his mind and they keep getting pushed back, and David's like, that's not me. And so, yeah, they come to the conclusion they need to speed things up. They need to ramp it up because they don't have time. They need to figure out his power and help him so they can go save his sister. So they're going to sedate him to try to control his mind that way.
Right. And the important bit, which is also part of what I really liked in the episode, is that he doesn't want Sid to come into his mind because he's ashamed of the past. He doesn't want her to see him that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, there's some real emotion there, and it makes sense, and they talk. It's good. I like that.
And I mean, I guess we do get a couple flashes before they actually do it of him as a little kid on Halloween. And then we start seeing the real life version of the angriest boy, the world's angriest boy in the world. I like how the title's like that. The world's angriest boy in the world.
Yeah. So what do we think about the angriest boy? Jim? What do we think?
I mean, all signs point to what we've originally thought being the case, but then again, it feels like that isn't what it's going to be. Because all signs point to that he chopped his mother's head off when he was a kid accidentally, because, it's been a thing. I mean, it was like a Twilight Zone episode. We've seen telekinetic kids that don't understand their powers, and then they use it for violence and potentially hurt people. So we could be covering that same ground, or there's setting us up for some sort of swerve.
Well, it could be also that he does have multiple personalities. The actual monster hasn't done anything bad this whole time. It's just looked at him weird, and it would be like a real clear way to make him an antagonist if we find out that he took over and killed his mother using his hands or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But he has but also we have the angriest boy in the world. Are they the same? Are they just different aspects? Are they demons? One thing's for sure. Well, no, it's not sure. But they do say, I'm not sure these are memories. Those are memories, these things.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that is an important line, I'd say.
Yeah, but it's also, it's a big deal, but it's exactly the sort of line where I'm like, okay, so not even the rules that we already established are clear, so it's even less something that feels real to me. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know. If I'm sighing at that, but if anyone's enjoying it, I don't begrudge you, and please don't begrudge me. It's just hard for me to be super on board with that,
Yeah, no, I agree, because I love sci-fi, I love weird stuff, but I do want to sense that the creators have rules to their universe, and maybe we're just slowly getting there. But yeah, it is frustrating when you kind of lay it out like, oh no, we're going through memories, so this, and this, and then they're like, wait a minute, I don't even know if we're in memories right now. The other thing I think of note is when they do get teleported to that room inside the school or whatever it is, we do see the X window, which looks like the X-Men thing. So that's a nice little shout out.
Not super subtle.
Yeah,
it's like the biggest thing in the shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of mindfuckery, and I'm always preparing for another wake up, like when they're in there and Sid follows Kid David into this air shaft, whatever it is, and she's like, "You gotta wake up," and then she's the one waking up, and I'm like, "There's no way any of these people are awake right now." Like even when they wake up Bird, I do like that she like beats the couch to wake people up because you can't touch them.
Yeah, because at first I forgot like her whole thing about touching, and I was like, oh no, here we go. She's not real or whatever, or she's a ghost or something. I did like, I mean, I guess it could be debated on what it ends up being, but I did like that Sid could see the stuff, and I took it more so because she's lived in his mind or in his body before. So she's a little bit more connected to him. I am sure it could just be that it's because she doesn't exist and she's in his head. But I took it as just because they had in the old Freaky Friday that's why she could see the things that he could see previously that no one else can.
That would check out, I suppose. There's a lot of details that we're not getting into because they're just not that interesting. Like the therapist, like his tapes and all of that, and he like stole stuff from his therapist, which we already kind of pieced together, so it's not that interesting to see those bits. And maybe there's some reveal, he killed his therapist or whatever, but he ate the tapes, or the monster ate the tapes to erase evidence, something like that.
That's what I took from it. And they did show, and at the end of episode 2, they did show the therapist kind of zombie-ish looking in one of the shots towards the end. And yeah, we did see him eating tape in the first one, but we didn't really know what it was when it was like the demon with the yellow eyes. Yeah. But now I guess we get a little bit more context in that, after they robbed him, he was just stealing or destroying evidence.
But they have such a heavy style aspect to this show that him using a tape recorder is almost like, I assume that's a metaphor or something. I assume that it's more in modern day than that, so he wouldn't actually have a tape recorder. That's just what he sees in his mind. So then him seeing it feels, or him eating it feels even less real. So I have a hard time knowing like what to grasp and so on. But I do enjoy when Sid is like, for example, did you see that? That flash, which could easily be overused, that type of thing. But so far it works.
Yeah, I agree. And like speaking to the style as well, like I like, and it's kind of a thing that's in a lot of like X-Men comics and stuff. Because there's like a quick shot of the doctor that is surrounded by all his different technology, and how he has that girl like just go into his body or whatever. And they hinted, like in the second episode when he's like, "Are you talking to yourself?" He's like, "No, I'm talking to blah blah blah." And
wait, the girl went into his body?
You didn't see that quick shot? Like, you know that one doctor that has the mouse going through the wall and all that stuff?
And they had the same name or something?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she didn't necessarily go to his body, but she walked through him in one shot. At the very least, she walked through him. So
when was this? Just out of interest, so I can find it and look at it.
Yeah, I'll pull it up in a moment. But it just reminds me of a thing you'd seen in an X-Men comic where someone has a weird power. We don't need to stop and explain what it is. It's just mutants have powers. And I feel like they were doing something like that, but in a show like this where everything's so you don't know what's real and what isn't, it's just kind of like, is this another thing? Is this just another David thing? Or is this really happening?
Everything's a David thing.
Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Okay. So, yes, I want to underline that I still think that this show is very, very well put together. The color, the feeling, and even some of the horror stuff, it's so well made that even I can like feel a little tingle. And I'm like, oh, that's what people enjoy. about horror. Despite all the stuff I was saying before, because I really do feel that it's not, I don't hate horror. It's just a long spooky crawl through the vents thing. It's still like the spooky stuff doesn't add super a lot for me personally. It's still a long scene. It doesn't make it that interesting. I want to get to the actual events. I realize it's like trials you have to go through, but still, it's I don't know what to tell you. It's just not my style, my jam.
Yeah, no, I get that. And even as a fan of that type of stuff, it's just starting to wear a bit on me because it just doesn't I want to feel like we're going somewhere. You know what I mean? I want to feel like that we're not just treading water.
I suppose that's the thing where I keep saying I don't like dreams and I don't like horror, but actually I don't like when dreams and horror are used in that way where it feels like it's not moving. The dream is not real. It's not real progression happening. Usually it'll be something like a character gets home and everything, like, oh, my mother has returned. Oh, we're so happy together. And then wait a minute, that wall has a hole in it. What's happening? There's a hand coming through. And then you wake up and it's like, oh, she wants her mother to come home. And I'm like, there are better ways, or there are more innovative ways to tell you what a character wants than to show it in a dream, which is 90% of the case with those things, and more often where it's like you're tricking me, you're trying to make me not think it's a dream. I'm more accepting of it if, like in this show, for example, it's like, okay, let's go into your head, and it's not like, are we inside the head or outside the head? But also there's an underlying level of that here as well, so that's not helping.
Yeah.
Did you find it?
No, I'll have to find it after. I'll let you know.
It's all right.
I can't sit and watch the whole episode now, so I don't want to not listen to what you're saying.
It's all fascinating stuff. Just assume it's fascinating.
Unless I dreamed it. Unless I dreamed it, and I'm David, and I don't know what's real and what isn't. But I'm almost positive there was a quick shot of weird shit. And anytime there was a quick shot of weird shit, I assume it was in Legion.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't have a lot of more specific notes because I feel like we've gone over most of it already. What do you think? Like the combination overall, I'll say this is my least favorite episode so far because it has all these things that I personally am not a fan of. Plus, it doesn't how does this episode end? It ends with David still in a coma.
Yeah,
David's
he doesn't wake up.
Mm-hmm. He's still in his mind, and we're gonna get more mind fuckery next episode, and I'm sure in the next episode where we're gonna be halfway through the show next episode, Jim.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that at that point, he's going to reach some inner truth about himself that's all structurally very sound. It's going to be the midpoint of the show. And he's like, oh my God, this. And then he returns to the real world and he has this new information. And he's like, bam, bam, gotta get my sister out. But it's also this is so much of the show right now is about him in his own mind, which... I mean, I get that that's what it is, and I shouldn't try to make it something it's not, but it's hard to feel that it has super crunchy substance to it. It's more like it just floats out a bit.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I want to get, and it doesn't even need to be some sort of, it doesn't need to be some big plot movement. I just want to get a little bit more... because they do a good job of jumping around a lot of he's a kid, he's a druggie, he's this, he's that. But I never feel like I'm getting a grasp of things, or at least getting something a little bit more of substance.
Yeah, and I do enjoy all that stuff, honestly. It's good, it's well put together. It's just that all the things that are revealed are things we've already assumed, and then they put those things into question afterwards, and we're like, I thought that was just what it was, and so on. I
found it.
I need. Okay, when is it?
It's actually right at the beginning. It's about 2 minutes in.
Okay, well, we'll put it over this in the video unless we forget, so everyone knows what we're talking about.
She, the girl's in the background doing she's boxing a thing, one of those punch the board things that has little hands. And then she stops and walks, and then she walks into him, and then he walks the other way.
Okay,
and it just feels like one of those hey, there's some powers here, but And I like it. I don't think it's a bad moment. It's like there's some power here because these are mutants. They have things they could do, and we're not going to explain it. But in a show like this, where like nothing, it feels like it could be real at all. It's more distracting than a cool like, hey, we're mutants.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because you want some rules. I've usually been, when we've discussed stuff like this, I've been the one who's like, Jim, don't worry about the rules. Like, chill out a bit. You don't need to know exactly how a gun works in Westworld. Just get that it works, you know? But here I'm a little bit like, I don't know what anything is, really. So
I guess
maybe that's the point.
One last thing before we finish. The hurt hand, but then not hurt. Does that mean, what are they telling us there? Is it, you like in the dream you could be hurt and it will hurt you, or no, because she's not hurt when she comes out of the dream?
She's fine when she comes out of the dream. It's just to show that she's awake. It was a dream. I don't know. I don't think it means anything, Jim.
Okay.
I feel like there's a lot of stuff that doesn't mean anything, unfortunately, going on.
Because I wasn't sure if they were trying to set up a thing where you can die in David's mind or not. But then I guess
I really did think it would be like no fingers, and that would almost have been like, okay, we got something concrete. Yeah. We know that if it happens there, it's for real. But now it feels like he's probably going to die in his mind and be fine.
What if he's so powerful that he did create? Sid is one of his personalities. But since he can control things, he actually like made a person.
Yeah, I mean, that's not far-fetched. That sounds like almost a joke in another show, but here it's like, that checks out, actually. Sid is probably like a manifestation, or if not him, then at least his friend.
Yeah,
maybe it was
Lenny.
just showing an illusion of her to the others, but on the other hand, then they would see her now too, because he's creating her now too, you know?
It works perfect for Sid, though, since she can't touch anyone.
Yeah. I think that might be it. But speaking of, this is just a detail, but didn't she help him out of the pool with gloves?
Oh, yeah, did she?
Didn't she wear gloves and she helped him out of the pool?
She had gloves, yeah. But that's only him she touched.
Yeah, but I wasn't saying that to disprove. I was just saying, like, why don't you put on some gloves, touch your lover?
If I remember correctly, there was a line of dialogue where she says, like, I don't even like it with the gloves because it feels dangerous or something like that. So they kind of explain, like, because it would almost be like, well, just wear gloves all the time. You're rogue at this point.
Yeah, but she did say it's like ants all over her body when she gets close to someone.
Yes.
Now that you mention it, guess it checks out. But yeah, I do like your theory. What do we call our theory? It needs a snappy hashtag.
We call it the
Sid is a golem theory.
Yeah, Sid is a golem theory.
Yeah.
Hashtag.
Hashtag that. All right. Please leave your comments on the Sid is a golem theory. Send them in to showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. Now, I should let you know as well, Jim has a podcast called Jim and Them.
Yes.
It's actually really good. It's the reason we know each other, as I started listening to it many, many years ago. And in case you want to listen more to him, and I don't see why you wouldn't, you should go to that. I'm going to put a link in the description to the first episode of Jim and Them that I ever heard. And maybe that will also get you on board with that one.
Ooh, interesting.
Yes. And for, I assume you're going to put the first episode of my podcast?
Yeah.
Yes, which you've listened to so many times.
I have. I listened to the original incarnation of Shows What You Know, actually. I've listened to, I think, all of them. We discussed Heroes, a terrible show.
Yeah, we never do that anymore, do we? Yes, we did start Shows What You Know. I did with a friend of mine called Anders, but he doesn't watch any shows ever, so that made it kind of tricky. But me and Anders still have a show called Hello There. It's over at awesomepedia.org/podcast. And I suppose I will also put a link to the episode where we talk about how to marry Severus Snape. We discuss all these different fanfics. We read some fanfics. I try to explain to him that, yes, Snape has in fact married every character in the Harry Potter canon and outside. And there are explicit scenes in there. Not just mindfucks. It's regular fucks. And we read it all in that episode, which will also put a link. It's pretty good, actually. I had this realization the other day. I don't try to sell our show a lot, but it's pretty good sometime. I mean, this one's great too, but everyone knows that.
Sounds like all of my favorite things in that episode.
Yeah, Snape. Fucking.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Swedish people.
Mm-hmm. He's even more Swedish than me. You can tell. You can hear more that he's Swedish. So that's great. But of course, there's also showswhatyouknow.com, and you can leave a review on iTunes, subscribe on iTunes, or whatever other podcast thing you like.
Yes.
We're on all of them, basically. And I think that's about it. We both have YouTube channels, but, just go watch them, watch them with your eyes. That's also a thing you can do. Yeah. I think that's it.
Yes, and subscribe on YouTube. Later.
Right. Later.
We are Shows What You Know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, well, watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.